They also developed the ability to shut down the lips, tongue, and larynx. And whilst we were still speaking, only we could hear it, and those were our thoughts. Our thoughts are public speech made private. Even though we're thinking, and nobody can hear what we're thinking, if you put little micro electrodes on lips, tongue, and larynx, you can see the same micro movements which we would use if we were actually speaking out those words. Our thoughts are motor activity suppressed into the motor areas of the brain. It's amazing then that even though our non-conscious is non-linguistic, rapidly our thoughts are motor activity, and we begin to think and feel better when we've moved. Ask anybody with anxiety. The only thing they want to do is move, is get up and get out of there. And that's the whole issue. Our thoughts are motor activity. And when you are coaching movement, you're actually improving. So to improve motor activity in brain injured people is actually to build the brain tissue which allows them to think better and speak better. And the case in point, I was talking about the kid who was working with a viper. He's hemiplegic, been so for 3 years, but he came to me because he could not speak, and we got him to speak using a viper because we created enough motor tissue for him to begin to express these thoughts. And not only that, he ran a race, a 100 meters race at school a few weeks ago and came second, even though he's hemi, because the viper is getting him into more and more complex moves. So is Taekwondo that he's doing, and so is the rest of the work we're doing with lunges and mountain climbers. But whatever we're doing here, we've improved his thoughts because he's gone from the 30th percentile in his brain testing to the 90th percentile. And the only explanation for that, he's created brain tissue. So emotions, physical sensations are as much motor activity as your speech.
So and that's physical brain tissue grown from stem cells in the brain?
Yes, and also the growth factors that then get the stem cells to know where to go and what to become. And so here's the issue. When you are carrying out complex movements, such as my baseball players have to do, now hitting a round bat with a round ball is very different to any other sport. It's physically impossible. You have to do it as a baseball player, and that's why baseball players are much more intelligent generally than any other sports we've tested. But here's the thing. If these guys think for a second, if these guys have anything going on emotionally, they're like Tiger Woods. They can swing, but they cannot hit. And Yogi Berra said it. He said a lot of things, but the one thing he said is, I can think and I can hit, but I cannot do both at the same time. When a baseball player, especially a batsman, gets any emotions going on, he can't hit the ball because the emotions and feelings disrupt and create thinking. And once he's thinking, that ball's too fast for him. He will never hit the damn thing. And you can put him out on the mound and he can swing for hours a day. He is hitting nothing. Yogi Berra said, I'm not in a slump, I'm just not hitting the ball. Now, when you take those guys and you put them into a visualization, you deal with emotions in metaphor terms. You get them walking across shark tanks and not falling in. You get them diving out of airplanes and opening their parachutes at the last moment. You put them back in front, and the first thing they do is swing at the ball and hit it. But they're not thinking. They're in the zone. And they've switched from beta activity in their brains to alpha activity. You can do that through movement, breathing, but through psychotherapy. When you're in a slump in baseball, you need the psychologist, not the trainer. And Steve Hecht and I have written about this in a book called The Hecht Effect. I wrote the introduction and presented the scientific models for how this works. How you stay in the zone is not thinking about it. And I'm working with one of my colleagues, working with Michali Csikszentmihalyi out of University of California on flow and what it means, and grit and what that means. And so emotions are movement. They're a form of movement.
So grit as in perseverance?
Grit as in perseverance is stick-to-itness, in going forward without immediate reward. And doing that again and again because A, this is how you drive your life. B, you're getting better and better at what's important to you. And C, there is a purpose, but you're not getting rewarded. And people who have grit succeed better than people with good emotional IQ and better than people with high intellectual IQs. Grit. In other words, if you can evoke in your client the stick-to-itness that says, I'm doing what's important to me. I'm following a cherished route for myself. I am moving forward and getting better and better at doing this. And there is a purpose. But that doesn't mean that it's rewarded immediately. But I'm prepared to keep on going because I have grit and I believe in it. I have a patient who I did really great therapy in terms of cognitive behavior, cognitive, psychodynamic, did a great deal of it. Right at the end, when I'd really changed her from a possibly dysfunctional wreck to a highly functioning student, I said to her, now which of these therapies was the best for you? And she looked at me and said, what are you talking about? The most important things were, number one, you clearly liked me. Number two, I really liked you. And number three, you trusted and believed that I could do. My skills meant nothing. It was the relationship. And I've had that again and again. So it is about evoking that relationship. It's about that warmth. And we cannot access those emotions. We have feelings which tell us that we're experiencing emotions. And then we think about those and modify. But that's the playground of the trainer, the coach, the mentor, whatever you want to call them, it's the same thing. How do we form a warm, listening, reflective relationship which acknowledges the person's emotions are being expressed in everything they do, and underneath us we scaffold and support their autonomy, allow them to get better and better at what's cherished in their life, and link this to a greater purpose. And then we're done. Then your practice is full.
The role of 3D movement in performance rather than routine sort of movements like bicep curls or lat pull downs that are rep after rep after rep.
And let me tell you a little story about this, which is public knowledge, so I can refer to the client. But Athletes Performance in Texas was contacted by a father who said, look, my daughter's 24, stepped out of an airplane, professional model with her own blog, with her own fashion magazine, and she walked into the spinning propeller of an airplane. She put up her hand to defend herself. She lost the hand. The propeller blade went into her skull, through her brain, through her eye, through her jaw, through her chest, out through her ribs. It dropped her dead to the floor. The mother rushed to her side. She was flown by a helicopter. They had to divert because she was in such a bad condition. They landed at a hospital where she was treated. Surgeons worked on her for 8 hours. Couldn't save the eye, couldn't save the hand, told the parents, please expect she'll be a vegetable. If she ever speaks again, it would be amazing. They put her into rehab with tons of elderly post-stroke victims who were there in the gym doing the basic physiotherapy. This girl nearly died. She was so upset. So the father contacted Athletes Performance, spoke to Sherry Walters, who's our chief physio, chief trainer, chief physical therapist in rehab, and she took this girl on. They only got so far, though, and then Sherry called me and said, this girl's going into decline. I don't know what to do. I said, get her a Viper. She said, they're in the cupboard somewhere. I've never used them. I said, go on YouTube, Google Vipers, look at all of that. This girl has a prosthetic arm which has a good grip lever on it, especially for sport. Get her into the Viper. And every now and again, blindfold her. She's only got one eye. Take away her good eye. Let her experience movement. Under load, loading and unloading, under movement with the Viper. That afternoon, this girl tweeted me on Twitter, joined me on Twitter, and tweeted me saying, oh my God, this Viper is unbelievable. She started coming to movement. She started doing this stuff. There was endless amount. And she did it blindfold. And she went through these movements again and again and again. And she discovered three-dimensional movement inside her head. Her executive functions went from the 40th percentile to the 80th percentile. Her brain just grew. She went back to her life, back to her boyfriend, back to her career. You talk to this girl, you have no idea that she had an awful brain injury with bone and wood fragments flying through her brain, through the left hemisphere. You would not know it. But movement saved her. And that's the issue. Novelty and complexity, not in 2 dimensions, not in a static position, is what we were evolved to do as human beings, as hunter-gatherers. We are able to change the entire structure of our body from movement to movement, depending on the slightest change of angle and load. Is an entirely different set of thousands of muscle fibers and fascia working together to create an orchestra. And the brain might be the conductor, but that orchestra has to work together perfectly with infinitesimal changes in direction, stability, load. And that is accomplished by moving in a bubble and filling the bubble with movement and creating flexibility, mobility, and stability across a wide range, a disparate and disorderly range of movements, because I see players injuring themselves all the time because they carry out a movement which, like the Dolphins, they never did in a while. And because in their training, in their bench pressing or whatever, they are telling the brain only this movement is important, and if they do a movement which is outside that range of their expertise and outside the range in which they have actually trained, they're going to tear something, because the brain won't know where the hell the body is at that brief split second in time. If your brain experiences in every single degree of freedom within that bubble, there will never be a movement that it doesn't recognize, and there will never be a movement across which it is unstable. Ask Japanese swordsmen. Ask Japanese artists. Sakeha. No work required. I have trained in that moment. I have trained in that specific place where arm, leg, neck, head were in relation to each other, and my brain knows where I am and where I was at that time and how to load and unload every component that needs to hold me. There are teams in Europe today with trainers where they do not get a soft injury in an entire season because the brain can compensate. Because the brain knows wherever you put that body in that bubble, it's seen it before, it has a schema, it has a pattern, it has a default strategy for keeping you safe in that moment. And if you think about Ian O'Dwyer's work and everything else, what is it saying? It's saying when I look at you and where you have pain is where your brain was not happy and could not coordinate a movement.
The body will always try and pinch motion from somewhere else if it can't get it from where it's supposed to be getting it. Yeah, which is what we see in our practice as well. That's how most injuries seem to occur. But
Sure, it's knowledge. Think of knowledge. Think of sakeha. Think of the knowledge of knowing where your body is. That there is a big difference between what science knows and what we practice. It comes down to that engagement of enjoying each other, of a relationship of equals. Think of play. You enjoy each other, you need each other, you are equals. Sometimes one decides what game to play, sometimes the other one. But it's equals. It is not an expert relationship. The power of play is to equalize, to minimize the discrepancies between us. That's what client-directed, client-centered training is.
Absolutely fascinating, Roy. I'd love to keep you on for another hour, but I'm sure you have things to do and papers to write and people to see. No doubt.
I have actually another webinar now with Melbourne coming up.
Okay. So if people would like to find out more about you, what should they do?
Yeah, it's to Google www.roysugarman.com. Happy to take emails and answer queries. Otherwise, like me on Facebook, friend me on Facebook. Is Roy Sugarman PhD is my professional authors page. Buy my book is always good. Not that authors make money, but it just looks good on paper. My publishers make the money. And as well, there's the third edition of my coaching book, which is published together with myself and the guys at PTA Global with Rodney Korn, and with the chapter by Rodney and with commentary on each chapter by Bobby Capuccio. And again, this is becoming the standard textbook for PTA Global. And again, it's all available on Amazon and through just Googling and having a look. But join my professional page, like my professional page, and you'll get a kind of idea of what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis and how all these concepts work and how I present myself across the world.
All right, well, with that, I'd like to wrap the webinar up and thank everyone for attending. My apologies for people that couldn't make the webinar, and a very special thanks to you, Dr. Roy Sugarman, for preparing and coming on and presenting this fascinating information to us, which it's made me a better therapist just from sitting here. RoySugarman.com or Roy Sugarman PhD on Facebook. Thanks very much, Roy. I look forward to catching up with you again very soon.
Lovely, Jeff. Always good.
All right. Thank you, Roy.
All the best. Take care.